is we are live. This is the Wrap It Up on Blast post-game show. Thank you all for tuning in. Once again, my name is Sheldon Alexander. I'm here with you on the Canada Hoops Daily Presents Wrap It Up podcast. We are the live and interactive Toronto Raptors post-game show coming to you live after each and every Toronto Raptors game. Raptors lose a tough one at home in Nick Nurse's return to Scotiabank Arena. The Raptors fall 114 to 107. Huge shout to all the people tuning in here on the podcast. Gonna let you know because it's a brand new thing we got here. Working with Canada Hoops Daily. They are now supporting the Wrap It Up podcast. And you can find this pod for now on the Twitter feed, which is at Can Hoops Daily on Twitter, or you can go to YouTube and subscribe to the YouTube page, which is also Canada Hoops Daily, and of course Instagram as well. This is where you can keep up with everything that's going on at Canada Hoops Daily. We've got more on the way, and you might be asking yourself, what exactly is Canada Hoops Daily? Well, let me explain. Everything basketball from a Canadian perspective. We've got news, we've got features, opinions, your daily hoop source for everything Canada basketball, including full court coverage of the Toronto Raptors, Canadian NBA stars, and Canada basketball. Again, Canada Hoops Daily for now. Follow the YouTube page, Canada Hoops Daily. Follow the Twitter page, Can Hoops Daily. That's where you can find this, the Wrap It Up podcast. We are back discussing your Toronto Raptors after each and every game. Wrap It Up, people who've been with me beforehand know what the deal is. I come on here, break down the entire game, but really this is your show, Raptors fans. This is where we get the pulse of what's going on in the fan base, how everyone's feeling after a tough loss. Nick Nurse's return. What are your feelings seeing Nick Nurse? What are your feelings seeing Gradey Dick tonight put in work with 16? Raptors lose a tough one, but I feel like there's some positives you can take away in a tough game. And again, second night of a back-to-back. It's a tough one for sure, but I think the Raptors looked all right. There were some tough spots there, but we will break it all down. So in the meantime, between time, wherever you are seeing this podcast, make sure you send in your comments and questions because, as I mentioned, this is the live and interactive Toronto Raptors postgame show for you, the fans. I want to hear from you. So wherever you're listening, make sure you hit us in the comment section. You hit us with the like. You hit us with the share. Get the word back up, like the meme says, the Wire meme says. Put the word back out. Let the streets know we back up. This is Wrap It Up, folks. Raptors lose 114 to 107. Scotty Barnes with 24 points, 8 rebounds, 5 assists. But I got to say, if we're being honest, Gradey Dick had more points than Scotty Barnes until late when the Raps were down 10 in the fourth quarter. Get to that to another day. But still solid numbers. You look at the score sheet, 24 points, 8 rebounds, 5 assists for Scotty Barnes. Dennis Schroeder, 15 points, 10 assists. As mentioned, Gradey Dick doing work off the Raptors bench. That's the production they really need to see in terms of just consistency from their bench. You need to see some stuff there. Gradey Dick providing that with 16 points, also 4 of 6 from three-point land. For the Sixers, as they did their damage, Joel Embiid and Tyrese Maxey getting busy, both with 34 points. Crazy game. As always, as mentioned, I'll go through the entire game, break everything down, and then after that, we'll take the comments and questions from you, the fans, wherever you happen to be listening to this. I got my Instagram feed up, and I got some people in there. I want you to know, if you're following this on Instagram, make sure you go and follow at Canada Hoops Daily, because this pod will not be living on my Instagram feed for long. It will not be living on my YouTube page for long. We're just getting the word out there that we back up. But if you want the pod long-term, you got to find the Canada Hoops Daily sites. Okay? So let's get this underway here because there's a lot to talk about. Again, no OG in this game for the Toronto Raptors, as OG dealing with some muscle soreness. Tried to give it a go in warm-ups, wasn't able to get out on the court for the Toronto Raptors. That's a tough loss because you're talking about your best defender, someone who you're hoping to be one of your better players overall. So a tough loss there for the Raptors. The starting lineup, Gary Trent Jr. gets that spot start for OG, which I think he felt pretty good about because Trent came out nice to start this game. He came out with some energy. But joining him in the starting lineup, you had Dennis Schroeder, Scotty Barnes, Pascal, and Jakob Poeltl, of course. Scotty Barnes getting things started with a quick lay-in right off the front end. And they're going against Nick Nurse. Please, I want you guys to send in your comments and questions on Nick Nurse. How do you feel about seeing Nick Nurse? Do you care about seeing Nick Nurse make his return to the Raptors? He's with the Sixers now. Let me know what you think. How do you feel? I want to hear from you. We'll get to that later on, though. Nick Nurse leading a squad. No James Harden, who's on a conditioning stint. I think that's how they're wording it. Yeah, lots there. But Joel Embiid, Tobias Harris, Maxey, PJ Tucker, and Shake Milton in the starting lineup. And Joel Embiid, I found my initial thought, seeing Joel Embiid back in Toronto, I was more fired up about that. I cared a lot more about Joel Embiid being back with the Toronto Rap, being back in Toronto, more so than Nick Nurse, really. Like, Nick Nurse is a coach, right? Like, we'll get to Nick Nurse later on. And I think Nick Nurse, it's cool, you know, he gets a round of applause. But, I mean, I will go to our guy, Michael Grange here on Twitter, who before the game, he stated before the game, as someone who's inside the building, you know, because I like getting the pulse of the fan base, what the fan base is telling me about what's going on with the team, right? And early on in this game, as I scroll through the timeline here, he said, fairly low-key introduction for Nurse. He gets a warm cheer, but no lingering ovation or tribute or anything early. But then later on, Raptors did a nice tribute for Nurse here in the timeout, gets the standing ovation. He gives a wave, a nice wave, and then gets back to managing his subs. So a little moment there for Nick Nurse, but overall, again, he's a coach. It's not like Kyle coming back. It's not like Fred coming back. It's not like Kawhi coming back. It's a little different. And again, we'll get to Nurse later on about his overall impact and all that fun stuff later on. But he's with the Sixers now, which is just weird because, again, the Sixers, I think Joel Embiid, I think airplane sellies, I think all that fun stuff. And so much going on there with the Toronto Raptors versus the Philadelphia 76ers as well. But as mentioned, first quarter, Gary Trent Jr. seemed super excited that he was in the starting lineup. He was looking really good early, gets a steal. He dunks for a 9-2 run for the Toronto Raptors. They came back and took the lead. But then Jakob Poeltl entering some foul trouble here as he subbed out early. And remember, he fouled out in the last game. So Precious comes in for him early, which was interesting because, you know, I get that right now Precious is ahead of Chris Boucher in the rotation. But there was a thought maybe we'd see more Chris Boucher as he did earn some more minutes last night, I thought, in Chicago as he put in work for the Raps. Either way, though, Chris Boucher not in ahead of Precious Achiuwa. And Precious Achiuwa came in, and you could tell right away the presence of Joel Embiid and what he does in the middle of that Sixers defense, because Precious had a chance early to get some buckets, but Joel Embiid was just changing some shots. Maybe Precious was rushing. He missed a dunk early. He missed an early chippy. But again, it's Joel Embiid. He's one of the most imposing, if not the most imposing big man there is in the entire NBA. Meanwhile, Gary Trent Jr. knocks down another three. He had 7 of the Raptors' first 14 points. Nick Nurse called a timeout. That's when we got the Nick Nurse tribute. You know, ran some shots of the coach talking on the bench, some music. I think it was the Arkells, or at least that's what Twitter told me. But yeah, cool. Nick Nurse salutes the crowd. Pascal Siakam, right out of the timeout, he hits a 3 followed by a Precious dunk. Gradey Dick, as mentioned, got some early minutes for the Toronto Raptors, and he was looking pretty good really early. Gradey Dick comes in, but it was Schroeder actually hitting the first 3, leading an 8-0 run, a 10-point lead for the Raptors at that point. But they start cooking. Siakam knocked down a 3 after that. As your Raptors started this game 5 of 5 from three-point land. More on that stat later, but we'll wind down what happened in the rest of the first quarter here. So the Sixers bench versus the Raptors bench. Sixers bench, you got Pat Bev, you got Kelly Oubre, and the Raps bench, we mentioned Gradey Dick getting some early minutes. Chris Boucher checks in, Precious checks in, Malachi, and they're with Scotty Barnes. And I talked about this on last night's pod. So much focus on what to do at the bench, who's going to be the bench leader. And I keep stressing that your bench leader is going to be one of your starters. It's just a matter of, is it going to be Scotty Barnes? Is it going to be Dennis Schroeder? Is it going to be Pascal Siakam? But that's where your improved bench play is going to come. Which one of your starters is able to lead that unit and alleviate some of the pressure that could be on Malachi Flynn, right? Like him trying to get everyone into the offense, do all that. If you push that over to Scotty Barnes, maybe you get a more free Malachi Flynn. Maybe. But I say all that because we've seen it before in Toronto. Remember, we used to see Fred with the bench. We used to see, obviously, Kyle in the bench was a big thing before the whole birth of the bench mob. Obviously, we're a ways away from having the bench mob, but, at this point, you want to see baby steps. Scotty Barnes really has to take control of that second unit if he's going to be the guy that is chosen to lead that second unit. Gradey Dick comes out shooting. He hits a nice three. Nice look for him. And the thing about Gradey in what he did tonight was he came out confident. There's no hesitation at all from Gradey. He came around screens. He got the ball, didn't think, just shot. And when you're a shooter, right, it's funny. And I would advise everyone to listen to JJ Redick's podcast because it's just dope hearing a shooter really break down just their offseason workout. And when you're shooting that many shots a day to be that prolific of a shooter, when you come to the game, you got to trust your work. And I feel like that's what we saw from Gradey in this game. Trusting the work, not thinking, coming off the screen, just getting the ball and letting it fly. That's what we got to see from Gradey because he's a great shooter. We know that. Best shooter in college basketball last year. We know that. So now in the NBA, how does that transfer? Well, run the offense, run all the sets that Darko has. Grady's going to be coming off screens. He's going to be wide open. You just got to let that shit fly. Gradey hit another three from the corner. Great start to the game for him. And the Raptors led 36-27 at the half. Okay. Follow me here. Siakam with 8 points, 3 for 3 from 2. 3 for 3 from 3-point land, pardon me. Gradey Dick had 2 threes, 2 of 2. Both of them were perfect from the floor, both starting 5 from 5, both knocking down multiple threes. And this stat from Matt Devlin was really good. The Raps were 7 for 7 from 3, okay? January 29th, 2014 was the last time a Raptors team went at least 5 for 5 from 3 in the first quarter of a game. That's a statistic right there. January 29, 2014. Who was even on that Raptors team? That's Kyle and DeMar. Kyle and DeMar there. Is that Rudy Gay? Is that pre-Rudy Gay? I mean, it's a long, long time. Got to look up that box score. Maybe I'll hit up my guy Steve Fellon for that one. But either way, for the Sixers, Joel Embiid with 14 points in the first quarter. Tyrese Maxey, 0 points in the first quarter. More on that later. Because, of course, as I said, Tyrese Maxey, 34 points in the game, 0 points in the first quarter. What does that tell you? Tells me that man gets buckets. He gets busy. Second quarter, Malachi knocks down another 3. The Raps as a team started out 8 for 8 from 3 in this game. But then Maxey starts to get it going. Knocks down the step back Jimmy. Hits a 3 to tie the game. He had 9 at that point. Hits another 3 to make that 12. Leading a 24-9 run for the Sixers, who led at that point 51-48. Raptors coming out of a timeout, which one thing that's super interesting. We're seeing how the NBA is a game of runs. And obviously, if you've been watching the Raps, you know what happened in last night's game, right? Crazy, crazy runs. But it is interesting to see just how great timeouts seem to work in terms of flipping the momentum. because the Raptors come out of their timeout. They get back on the break. They answer with a 7-0 run of their own. Scotty Barnes with the lay-in. Raps take the lead, make that an 11-0 run after a three-pointer by Gary Trent Jr. But guess what? More runs, kids. And again, Tyrese Maxey is just doing work. And, shouts to Alvin, who pointed out a lot of this on the broadcast. But Tyrese Maxey, when he gets ahead of steam, you can't really stop him. My guy is going downhill at all times. So when he does stop on a dime behind the three-point line, how do you stop that as a defender? That's difficult. Very difficult. I don't know the answer to that. I don't know just what or how you get that done, but got to give Tyrese Maxey credit, because I think that the way that his game is, and especially without James Harden in the way, he can play his game, which is an up-tempo, fast-paced game. With James Harden's there and he's slowing things down. You got to walk the ball up the floor. You got to stand there and watch him dribble, knowing you're not getting the ball. Like, it's just a whole different vibe. But Maxey, he was cooking. Hits another three. Raps led by 3 at the half, 59-56. Maxey had 15. Embiid had 16. Gary Trent had 14, 11 from Pascal. But here's the thing. The Raps were shooting 62% from 3 in that first half. 10 of 16 from 3. That's amazing shooting for a Toronto Raptors team that we were being told might struggle from three-point land this season. But here comes the third quarter. I feel like this game really flipped in the second and third quarters behind Tyrese Maxey. Again, after he had a very slow start in this game. He had 0 points in the first quarter, then just went crazy. Sixers come out in that third on a 13-2 run to start the queue after a PJ Tucker 3. And when PJ Tucker's hitting threes, you're in trouble. Raps just weren't ready to start the third, and let's be honest, that was a huge, huge thing in this game. You got to come out and be ready to start the half, and the Sixers were. Raptors were not. And all of a sudden, Sixers were up 10 before Yak ends the run, as the Raps went 6 minutes in which they had just one field goal. Maxey hits another 3, and I think this was a huge, huge swing in this game. This right here might be the moment of the game, because I think what happened at this point, okay, you have Scotty Barnes. Raps get the turnover. Scotty Barnes driving down the lane. It's one-on-one. He goes up to the cup, misses the layup, no call. He starts arguing with the ref. Sixers go the other way. Maxey, who's been cooking, is now wide open for another 3, hits a deep, deep 3. Timeout Raptors. Darko is furious. He's yelling at the ref. He gets teed up. And again, to recap, Scotty misses a layup. There's no call. He's arguing. Ball goes the other way. Maxey knocks down the dagger 3. Timeout Raps. Darko teed up. Scotty still arguing. I didn't see it on the broadcast, but I could imagine Nick Nurse just kicking his legs up on the bench with the cigar. I'm joking. But you get the point. I think in that instance, right? We talked about this a lot, especially during the DeMar years and just with Kyle at certain points. But just overall in the NBA, you see this as a theme. The difference between going up, trying to get a call, and going up, trying to score. And I think in this instance, Scotty was going up, trying to shield off the defender, but he was initiating the contact and trying to get a call and missed a layup. They showed the replay. You could see the replay. I don't think that it was a foul, or if it's a no call at best, isn't that what we want from the NBA? Not like all these whistles all the time, but either way, whatever. You want to argue? Cool. But Maxey's wide open at the other end, and he just kept cooking. Darko, got to give him credit for sticking up for his guy, because that's big. And I'm sure that's giving your man, Scotty Barnes, a lot more confidence for sure. Seeing his coach defend him and stick up for him, I think that's really big and a cool thing for your coach to do. But at this point, Raps struggled in that quarter while Maxey kept cooking. Sixers outscored the Raps 35-20 in that quarter. Maxey and Embiid had 27 of the 35 points for the Sixers. Sixers were up 91-79 at that point. And off 11 turnovers, big part of this broadcast, big part of this game was the points off turnovers at that point, because I think that was a turning point of the game. And at that point, the Raps had 11 turnovers, but the Sixers had 22 points off of those 11 turnovers. And that's a huge, huge, huge deficit for you to have. But as mentioned, to me, bright spot was Gradey. Gradey for the majority of the game, I'm pretty sure he ended the game in this fashion. Yeah, by far. He led the Raptors in bench scoring by far with 16 points off the bench. And I think, again, Raptors fans, if there's something that you want to look at as a really, really good trend, something to take away from this game, it's definitely the play of Gradey. I thought he did a really good job. He just shot the ball with confidence. There were points where he got the ball, you would see him make a dribble, either make a move to the basket. Like, he just played really confident. And if he's able to play that confident, he's going to play, because the Raps desperately need his shooting. Dennis Schroeder had a pretty solid game as well. He was okay in spurts, back-to-back threes, cut the lead to 6. Raps were hanging around. Gradey hit another 3. The Raps really hung around for a bit, but at the end of the day, they had no answer for Maxey. And that was the thing. Because even at the end of the game, when the Raps started to make a push to make the game seem a little closer towards the end, it ended up as a 7-point game, right? But at that instance, when the Raps were cooking, trying to make it a little closer, the end of the day, nothing much really came of it, because they just kept giving up easy buckets at the other end. And if you're the Raptors at that point, that's a really tough thing for you to have happen. I mean, you're getting threes, you're working hard on offense, you're getting good buckets to fall, but then on the flip side, giving up the easy bucket the other way, that's just tough in the fourth quarter. And Sixers come away with the victory, 114-107. Sixers win and Nick Nurse's return. And I got to say, it was an interesting game for the Raps. I'm taking away the positive of seeing what Gradey was able to do in this game, because I thought he did a really good job. But defensively, Tyrese Maxey just went off. He had his way with the Raptors, because I mentioned the 34 points, but he also had 7 assists, 6 rebounds in this game. He was 7 of 9 from 3. 7 of 9 from 3. That's where you really miss OG Anunoby, right? OG is your number one defender. I'm not saying that he would have stopped Maxey, but he definitely would have made life more difficult. You would hope, right? And so that's where it becomes very tough not having OG Anunoby in your lineup, because the Raptors are already a team that is not very deep. But at the end of the day, when someone goes down like that, you need someone else to step up in their place. And I remember a couple days ago, there's a lot of talk in Raptors off day about how good they are defensively, right? They have a bunch of guys that can defend. Scotty said they got a lot of long bodies that are able to defend, get in passing lanes, etc. And, it would have been nice for one of them to take that challenge and at least try to slow up Maxey. But it didn't appear to be the case. This game was dominated by Tyrese Maxey. Again, 34 points, 7 assists, 6 rebounds, 12 of 20 overall from the floor, 7 of 9 from 3. Your man's Joel Embiid, 34 points, 8 assists for Embiid, leading the Sixers, and 9 rebounds. Pretty solid game there for both of those Sixers players. On the Raptors side of things are kind of looking odd for Pascal so far this season. He had 11 points in this game, 7 rebounds, 4 assists, only took 8 shots. And it's interesting to go forward and see what do we make of Pascal this season? We know he's all NBA caliber because we've seen that happen. We know coming off of last season, or to begin last season, he was talking about how he wants to be a top 5 player in the league. But as you look at this Raptors game, you're kind of seeing a trend here, and it's 3 games in. But as mentioned, Pascal Siakam had 8 field goal attempts in this game. 8, right? Players to have more field goal attempts in this game than Pascal Siakam. Scotty Barnes had 16 shots. Dennis Schroeder had 14 shots. Gary Trent Jr. had 16 shots. Precious Achua had 10 field goal attempts in this game. And Gradey off the bench also had 8 field goal attempts. That's a lot of guys taking more field goal attempts than Pascal Siakam. And I'm not saying that that's a bad thing. I'm just saying it's something to pay attention to as we see how this Raptors season is going to play out, as we try to figure out who is still a part of the future of this team, who is a part of the now of this team. Right? We're talking about Pascal Siakam, perennial all-star, all-NBA, asking for max money, 8 field goal attempts in a game. Interesting stuff to keep track of there, Raptors fans. I don't know. But either way, everything's all right in Raptors land. I feel like they played a pretty solid game, put up a good effort in a game in which you're coming off the second night of a back-to-back that went in overtime, by the way. So you're talking an OT game. Then you're going to come back home to, a game that you're emotionally going to get up for because it's against your former coach, Nick Nurse, and rival Joel Embiid and the Sixers, right? So that's a big game to get up for. And I thought the Raptors, for the most part, they showed up, they tried, they gave a good effort. It just wasn't enough. Too much Tyrese Maxey in this game for the Toronto Raptors. So again, I want to thank everyone for tuning into this Canada Hoops Daily Presents Wrap It Up podcast. Yes, we are back. Wherever you're watching this pod, make sure that you like, follow, subscribe, wherever you're listening to this, and make sure you follow the Canada Hoops Daily just socials, because that's where you're going to be able to get this pod in the meantime, between time, whether that is on Twitter at Can Hoops Daily or on YouTube or Instagram at Canada Hoops Daily. That's where you'll get this podcast. And make sure you like and subscribe, because you might miss the show live. You might not get to ask your questions live, but you can still listen to the pod. It's Halloween weekend. I'm sure people are out at their Halloween parties right now. You might not have put us up on the TV in your party on YouTube, and that's okay. I understand, but that's why we got you covered. Follow us on Apple Podcasts and on Spotify. You get the podcast afterwards. And then next time, after the game, join us live. We got options for you. However you want to consume this medium, we got you covered. And as mentioned, because this is for you, the fans. So now let's get to some comments and questions. I want to shout out Janisa. I see you. Hello. Behave yourself, by the way. Let's get to some more comments, though. Huge shouts to the people tuning in to watch this show, because this is what it's all about here on the Canada Hoops pod. And, big shouts to my guy, K2's Garnett. That's one of my OG Wrap It Up fans. Happy to have you on board here, my friend. One of our longtime listeners, watchers, supporters of the pod. Hopefully you are on the Canada Hoops Daily YouTube page, sending in your comments and questions. Really appreciate that. First off, I appreciate this message. A lot of welcome back messages that we've been getting early on in the pod, and I really appreciate that, because here's the thing. I'm happy to be back. I like the vibes of the Raptors fan base, because I know in a season like this, especially, you're dealing with like diehard Raps fans. Shouts to Jeremy chiming in as well on the YouTube page. Really appreciate everyone here watching the pod, because that's the thing. Oh, Snake. Yep. I see you. There's so much more I could say there, but I'm not just going to leave that one alone. Let it slide. Continue on with the show here. But we're back on the pod, and because I like these seasons where you're getting the diehard Raps fans, right? It's easy when you got Kawhi, or not even, because everyone wasn't even on board with Kawhi until it got to the playoffs. So story for another day. But I mean, the diehard fans, okay? The people that are living and dying with what's going on. That's who I want to dive into and hear how y'all are doing. So Jeremy says here, I don't understand the plan with Siakam. I'm with you. The Siakam thing is super interesting, because I talked about this on last night's pod, but it's in everyone's best interest for Pascal to succeed, right? Because if you're the Raps, regardless of whether you're keeping him, you plan to re-sign him, you need him to play better for you to justify re-signing him. But even if you've already made your decision that you don't want to re-sign him, it's still in your best interest that he plays well, or at least shows enough signs of playing well, so that you can trade him. But if you're talking about an all-NBA caliber player, a max player potentially, an all-star player potentially, it's been an interesting 3 games for Pascal Siakam. He hasn't broken 20 points yet this season, which is strange, right? Pascal Siakam has had 15 points against the Minnesota Timberwolves, 18 points in an overtime game against the Chicago Bulls, and then 11 points against the Sixers. That's not a real good start for Pascal Siakam. So I'm interested to see how that plays along. Obviously, there's a long way to go as we're talking about game 3 of the season, but it's just something to follow because there's super interesting storylines. Because a reminder, the Raptors have so many free agents. You got OG, who's a free agent. You got Pascal, that's a free agent. And OG's hurt. And Pascal so far this season is averaging 16 points per game. That's a tough one. The Snake says Schroeder was a great pickup. I think so far. Thoughts? Dennis Schroeder's been okay, right? Dennis Schroeder's been okay. I think Dennis Schroeder, to me, has been exactly what he's always been, which is just a solid player, probably better suited if your team is really good. Dennis Schroeder is suited to come off of your bench. But if you're relying on Dennis Schroeder to be, you know, an A1 plus starter for you, it's kind of tough. Dennis Schroeder played all right tonight, 15 points, 10 assists, but 15 points on 14 field goal attempts. I don't know how much you like that, but shooting well from 3, which is something that he didn't come in as advertised as being able to do. So you got to give him credit there, right? Shooting the 3 ball well so far this season is Dennis Schroeder. And if that continues, that definitely helps a Raptors team. 10 assists, obviously you like that because that's a guy who is coming in to be your floor general. Him along with Scotty Barnes, that's going to be the key. And one thing I also want people to pay attention to, right, is when these games get tough, when we enter into what I call winning time, you got to see who's going to be the ball handler that's making all the decisions. It was Dennis Schroeder tonight. He made some all right plays down the stretch, but I feel like the defense was more the problem for the Raps. You know, once Maxey got going, there wasn't much they could do. You're now trying to outscore Maxey, and that's not the way to go about that at all. It's not the way to go about much in the NBA, if I'm being honest. But I'm interested to see what happens in winning time. As you saw last night, I know I still have visions. It was so interesting today going into work, and everyone was talking about last night's game. Like that was the first thing everyone wanted to talk about was how insane that Bulls game was. People were not talking about Nick Nurse's return. Nick Nurse's name didn't even come up. Everyone was so lit still talking about what happened in the game last night because it was the most insane thing ever. But I bring it up in this instance because last night we saw in winning time how much the Raptors struggled to just, you know, get into their offense late, to inbound the ball, get the ball over half court. Those are all things that start with point guard play and floor general play, right? So I want to see how that progresses throughout the year, as well as this free agency story, which, again, we're talking about Pascal Siakam and OG Anunoby. OG is already hurt and hasn't played, and Pascal, as mentioned, averaging 16 points per game through 3 games this season. I don't think that'll last because I feel like Pascal just gets buckets, and you know, they got to just figure out, you know, he's still trying to figure out this new offense, this 0.5 offense, and everyone's kind of trying to figure out their role in it all. But so far, I don't really know. A couple more comments here. 8 shots, 7 threes. So that's annoying. But Gary Trent Jr. takes all these mid-range pull-ups. That is true. Gary Trent Jr. started off this game really well. He had 17 points overall in the game, but what did I say here? 6 of 16 from the floor for Gary Trent Jr. And if I go back up into the notes, I'm pretty sure that Gary Trent Jr. had most of his damage in the first quarter or first half, definitely. Didn't really do much in the second half. And I feel like if that's the case, you know, you need to, this is going to be a theme for the whole season with this team, right? Consistency. That's what people need to see. And you haven't really seen that yet from Gary Trent Jr., but also you're talking about the difference between coming off the bench and starting, who you're playing with, where your shots are coming from, and you're still getting used to a new coach. So I would urge Raptors fans to just relax. It's early in the season. You're playing, the Sixers are a good team, still projected to be a top team in the East, even without James Harden. So it's okay. You know, kept it close, kept it interesting. You get another shot at them next week. I think Thursday in Philly. Jeremy brings up an interesting comment here. He says, I'm starting to think that comment from Masai is making Siakam feel like he can't screw up at all. I think we're talking about at Media Day, I think, where he's talking about the selfishness last year. I honestly think that was blown out of proportion. I don't think Masai was directly talking about Pascal Siakam, but the way that was reported or the way that it was portrayed on social media made it seem like he was talking about Pascal. But I don't think that he was talking about Pascal. I think he was talking about overall just the team. And I know I didn't do wrap it up last year, but we had a bit of ball on blast last year. There are some things I did last year where we were able to talk ball. And one of the things I talked about that was so difficult about last season was just you had a lot of players that had personal things that they were all striving for, personal goals that they were all striving for. And so when Masai Ujiri points to selfishness last year, and you go back and you think about last season, you had Pascal telling you that he was a top 5 player or he wanted to be a top 5 player before the season started. He's trying to make all NBA so that he can re-up and get the Supermax contract. He's trying to be an all-star again, which he was. You had Fred VanVleet coming off an all-star year, so he wants to be an all-star again. Plus, Fred was in the last year of his deal, trying to get a new contract. You had Scotty Barnes coming off his Rookie of the Year campaign, so you know he's trying to up that. You had Gary Trent Jr. heading into his almost free agency, so he's trying to get a new contract. OG was fighting for it. Like, you just had a lot of guys that were all trying to get certain things. And, you know, Nurse would preach a lot of that comes with winning, but the Raps couldn't really figure that out. And I think that's where the selfish talk came in. I think it was more of a collective more than it was directly being aimed at Siakam. I think there was some, you know, there's a definite divide, I'll say, between, and Fred talked about this openly, so it's not like I'm breaking any news here, but there's definitely a divide between the OGs, and I don't mean Anunoby, I mean the old guard, we'll say, of the Raptors in terms of Fred and Pascal, and a lot of talk about, oh, well, you know, Pascal gets his shots, the shots go through him, and then, you know, the new guys coming up. OG wanted to expand, and the OG wanted more shots. That was another thing at the start of last year. Remember those stories breaking about OG wants his role expanded in the offense? That was a whole storyline last year. I think that was just an interesting thing as well, as my phone, for some reason, starts playing music. I don't even know how that happened. Or maybe it's my phone playing this music. What is going on here? That's hilarious. Don't even know how that happens. But, you know, here we are. Control room scrambling. But either way, the point remains that the Raptors just had a lot of things going on, and I don't think it was directly aimed at Pascal Siakam. I just think they had a lot of things going on. Another question here from Instagram. In your opinion, is OG overrated? So that's an interesting question, because I feel like it depends on who's rating him. Does that make sense? because we've now heard that OG, there were rumors about Masai and company. And again, these are rumors. We don't know if it's true or not. But there were stories about supposedly the Raptors wanting multiple first round picks for OG Anunoby. Is he worth that? I don't know. Should the Raptors have possibly made that deal instead of heading into now a season in which he's an unrestricted free agent next summer? I'll let you decide that. But there are stories about whether he was available in either trades for multiple first round picks or for Kevin Durant or this season, Dame Lillard. I would say that if you are saying that you cannot give up or you don't want to give up OG to get Dame Lillard or to get Kevin Durant or to get multiple first round picks, I would say that you are overvaluing OG Anunoby. I think OG is a very solid NBA player. I think OG Anunoby, if you put him on like the Denver Nuggets in the Michael Porter Jr. role, I think he'd be really good in that. If you put OG Anunoby to play in the Okogie role on the Suns, right, with Kevin Durant, Bradley Beal, and Devin Booker, I think he'd thrive in that scenario. But I feel like if you're asking OG Anunoby to be like the guy on your team or one of the guys, you might be asking a little too much for OG. And you know what? The biggest thing might not even be about opinions on how good OG Anunoby is. The reality of OG Anunoby might just come from his availability. Because last year was the first season in which OG Anunoby played in over 60 games since his rookie year. And I think that if that's the case, that's the real issue. Let me see here. So he played in 67 games last year, and you'd have to go back to 2019, 2020, and that's the last time. So OG last year, I got that wrong, but here's the thing. OG played 67 games last year, which again, okay, cool. I think you need more than that, or you would want more than that, but okay. It was better than the 48 he played in 2021, 2022, the 43 games he played in 2020, 2021, and he played in 69 games in 2019, 2020. Nice. And the year before that, 67, 74. So again, it's not about how much I rate OG Anunoby. It's just more so, how much money do you want to be paying him next season? That's the real question. So again, lots of time to discuss all these things, but the Raptors lose a very tough one here to the Philadelphia 76ers, 114-107. Tough L there for the Toronto Raptors as they hope that they can bounce back as they got more games on. This is a busy week. Like, you don't get time to kind of wallow in your tough loss if you're the Toronto Raptors, as you're right back at it Monday night at home to the Portland Trailblazers. Super young team, a new look team though, with Scoot Henderson and obviously trading for DeAndre Ayton. No more Dame Lillard. So that's going to be an interesting one, but an interesting week ahead for the Raptors, as Monday they got the Portland Trailblazers. Wednesday they got the Milwaukee Bucks, Giannis and Dame. Speaking of Portland Trailblazers, and I feel like that's right there. And on Thursday, you got the Sixers once again. Raptors, Sixers next Thursday, but this time in Philly. So interesting week for the Raps. No time to hang your heads. No time to wallow in this tough loss to the Sixers and seeing Nick Nurse again. We didn't even really talk about Nick Nurse. Maybe we will on Thursday, after Thursday's game. Send in your comments and questions. You know, even the podcast people listening to this on Spotify or Apple, send in your comments and questions on Nick Nurse. Your thoughts. What do you feel when you're seeing Nick Nurse now? Are you happy he's gone? Did you wish he stayed? Do you think he was a good coach? All that fun stuff. I want to hear from you guys how you feel about that. But we've gone on for too long on this game already, but that's just the vibes, because I'm just happy that Wrap It Up is back. I'm just happy that something like Canada Hoops Daily exists to bring the Wrap It Up pod back. And I'm just happy that y'all are here to be with me, to to break it all down as we do after each and every Toronto Raptors game, because this is the only live and interactive Toronto Raptors post-game show. We got you covered. Make sure you're following Canada Hoops Daily, because that's how you get the pod. That's how you'll get all the information for what's next for this brand. Website, videos, podcasts, all that fun stuff. Lots on the way, and you'll find that out if you follow along at Can Hoops Daily on Twitter and Canada Hoops Daily on both Instagram and on YouTube. Like and subscribe to the pod wherever you get your podcasts, Apple and Spotify. We got you covered there. And it's such a bless to be back, even in the tough losses. It's okay, because we've got each other, Raptors fans. Raptors lose 114-107. Joel Embiid and Tyrese Maxey both dropped 34 for the Philadelphia 76ers. Maxey was just on fuego fire in this one after scoring 0 points. Again, 0 points my guy scored in the first quarter, and then he ends the game with 34 points. If that's not work, I don't know what is. 7 of 9 from 3 for Tyrese Maxey. He was doing it inside. He was doing it outside. He had a little bit of everything for the Raps, who, in a losing effort, I will say, shouts to Gradey Dick. Gradey came out shooting the lights out, his best game so far this season. 16 points for Gradey, 4 of 6 from three-point land. That's what the Raptors need from him if he is going to become a valuable member of their rotation. Scotty Barnes chipping in with 24 points, 8 rebounds, and 5 assists. Stuff in the stat sheet, no matter what the Raps do, win or lose. And they lost this one again, 114-107. But we'll be back at it again on Monday against the Blazers. A young team. Hopefully the Raps can pull out a victory. But either way, we will be right here to break it all down, because I used to pray for times like this, to rhyme like this. This is Canada Hoops Daily presents the Wrap It Up podcast, the only Raps post-game show, live and interactive, taking your comments and questions, because that's what we do here. We'll be back on Monday. And until next time, you know the line. See ya.